Hey everyone, Dan Gershenson here with Caliber Brand Strategy and Content Marketing, welcoming you to another edition of the Marketing Guides for Small Businesses podcast. Today we're going to go a little bit deeper with how we brand ourselves as far as redefining why we're doing what we're doing. And let me explain what I mean by that. Sometimes we are sort of going through the motions of what it is that we're doing, and we can kind of get lost in the day to day or the week to week of let's do a blog post today, or let's do a social media blurb today, or let's optimize this, or all of those types of things. And when you sort of get to a moment of time, let's say like the fourth quarter or December or even the beginning of the year, you kind of tend to take a step back and go, wait, what are we trying to do here? What's our bigger picture? What's our why? So today we're going to talk about refining your why, getting back in touch and executing on your brand's bigger picture, purpose, and passion. As always, I am joined by Ken Tucker of Changescape Web, Paul Bartels of Changescape Web, Ian Cantle of Outsource Marketing, and Jen Kelly of New Initiatives Marketing. Hello and good morning, everyone.
Hey.
Ken, we're going to start with you because I think this is a topic that is probably near and dear to all of us. It's ironic because we talk about the brand that we create for people, and yet if we're really going to be authentic, branding can't be just necessarily like done in a bubble or a department or anything like that. So my question is, though, with everything that a brand has to consider to meet the customer along the buyer's journey, and I did that Shatner thing that you buyer's journey in different phases, we can get pretty well locked in on tactics. And that sort of tends to cloud things. So regardless of whether, talk about whether it's your business or a client's business, how often do you think a company should then take a step back and say, are we still who we are and who we want to be? And what do we stand for? Does that still make sense? And or if not, how has that changed? When do you think people should do that, and how often?
Well, you've got to realize you're talking to somebody who majored in philosophy. So I might not look at the world the way everybody else does, but I'm a huge believer in self-reflection, whether that's for your business or whether that's, for you and the way you're living your life personally. So, I think it's really, really important always to do it. And I think you need to find ways, because I don't think most people probably do it I know they don't do it nearly as much as I probably do, and maybe I do it too much. But I think you need to build in regular checkpoints, not only with yourself, but also regarding your business. And, whether that's, doing something quarterly, whether it's joining a mastermind or working with a group of peers or trusted businesses that, whether it's through a business association or something like that. I think it's really important to build that in, and it needs to be built in as an element. Donald Miller is getting ready to write a book. Well, he's already written the book. It's getting ready to come out in January. It's called Hero on a Mission. I think that would be a great place for anybody to start. He actually recommends, and I don't do this, I admit, but it is very, very beneficial to go through the book. I don't do it as religiously as it's called out in the book, but using a daily planner to just kind of make sure you're continually dialed into what you do. And I think what we're seeing right now over the last 24 months is more and more people are realizing that there is a disconnect between their life and what they want to do and what their passion is and what they, how they want to earn a living. And, so maybe it's more important than ever now, but I think you've got to do it. You've got to build in these natural checkpoints, and you've got to do something that's going to work for you. Otherwise you're not going to do it. So I think it's really important.
Yeah, it's I was often hearing lately in the last 30 days about how to make new business development a daily practice. But you're right. I think a marketing check in with yourself could probably even be a daily practice. As is this in alignment? So it's
Yeah.
good for not only us as marketing practitioners, but probably our clients as well.
And it's really easy to get that misalignment. And if you don't recognize it early enough, it's going to lead to burnout. It's going to lead to anger and frustration. And, if you're running a business, that's not going to be helpful. You
Yeah.
know, it's going to, I mean, it's hard enough to keep employees, or contracting staff these days anyway. Um, you don't want to do anything to alienate anybody and unnecessarily drive them off, because it's pretty easy for a lot of people to go right now.
Yeah, for sure. Ian, you do a great job. I've told you this before many times. I hope that you put together a pretty great marketing calendar for clients. It's very well thought out and very robust. Um, but in between the what and the when you're doing with marketing, in what ways are you keeping the big picture of the brand in front of these folks? Where does that all kind of fit in seamlessly in the task of, say, project management or the marketing calendar? You've got all this stuff laid out for months and months on end. Where do you kind of think about inserting this reflection stuff?
Yeah. Great question. And thanks for the compliment, Dan. I appreciate that. And I will take that and hold it tight. Um, yeah, even before we kind of talk about the marketing calendar and content calendar, I think it has to be built in the right way. And the right way is being informed and influenced by your marketing strategy. And in your marketing strategy, you, of course, should be understanding what your business's why is. You should also be understanding what your clients or customers' why is related to your products and services. And all of that ultimately leads through, there's many other contributing factors, like how do people search for your product and service online, all of that kind of stuff. But all of that influences your marketing calendar. And your marketing calendar is the tactician's approach to ensuring that you're taking your strategy and the why built into your strategy and working on it on a daily basis. So I don't ever think there's a disconnect. And I do actually think you can overemphasize the focus on the why, especially in relation to your customers, so much that you're gazing at your belly button, so to speak, instead of delivering excellence. And so I think there has to be a balance, right? But part of your question was, how often should you, relook at how your daily tactical things that you've built out are still aligned properly with your why. Your why is not something that changes every day. It shouldn't. So once you've defined that in relation to your business and your clients, you're pretty much taking that marketing strategy, building out a marketing system and a marketing engine, and delivering that on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. So I think quarterly is a great time to you should be reporting on everything anyways on a monthly basis at the very least. But then quarterly, just doing a gut check and saying, hey, is everything still in alignment? Do our high-end metrics that tell us if we're on strategy, what are they saying to us? And then, biannually, I think it's a great, or twice a year, especially at the end of the year, regrouping, ensuring that nothing has dramatically changed in the marketplace, nothing has dramatically changed with the clients and customers that you serve. And I think specifically too, the why is often more about rallying your internal team. So it depends on the continuum of the size of business you're in, how you carry that through. But then it's kind of part of your messaging platform that you are delivering to customers, that it flows through the things you say, not necessarily what you're choosing to do, but how you're saying and doing things where your why can help differentiate you in the marketplace.
Yeah,
that was a really long-winded answer to your question.
No, it's very good. As you were talking, it made me realize too that sometimes that part where people are, let's say you have not rampant turnover, but let's say that you have turnover of a new CEO or a new VP or a new marketing director or things like that, it probably makes it all the more imperative that you have that marketing, that content calendar, that marketing calendar, and then sort of that reinforcement of everything you're saying always top of mind. Because if somebody just steps in midstream, I would think that would be just a huge thing to sort of say, well, this is where we're taking the train down the tracks already of where we've been. This is how you kind of can get on board with that, rather than, okay, let's start all over from scratch because somebody's new.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that once you've defined your content calendar and that's your plan for how do we take strategy and deliver it on a daily basis, I think that is your guidebook, and you don't need to be constantly looking at the higher level strategy and rethinking it all unless you see large factors that are affecting your, the results. Mm-hmm. And then of course you need to look at things, but rarely does that happen.
Yeah. I would just like to kind of jump in too,
Sure.
I mean, it's easy for all of us. I know I fall victim to this. Where you kind of get into that hamster on, the wheel, where you're just running and you're keeping up, and before you know it, you're just tired and you're frustrated, and business, you have to think about a business, and you've got to look at, how a business progresses. You've got fundamental basic needs that you have to take care of. So you've got the survival kinds of things. Do you have the cash coming in to run the business? Are you able to pay yourself? Those kinds of things. And you need to think about these things in kind of a framework to keep yourself oriented and always come back and challenge yourself. Where are you at in your business? What is really the thing that's pulling you down and keeping you from, the self-actualization or as close to attaining self-actualization as you want, because it's really easy to get sucked down into the details, and those details can run over you quicker than you can blink an eye.
Yeah. And one of those details being, besides social media that we often think about, or email marketing or things like that, I think one of the biggest things that somebody's got to look at is their website. When it comes to sort of, if you're going to pivot on your why at all, I think sometimes people just kind of think, okay, well, we're this now and that's that. But they sometimes don't think about the impact on the brand pieces they have. And Jen, that's kind of what I was looking for you maybe to answer here is, because you deal with this with your website development all the time, is for making sure the website is consistent with how the company is evolving. And this is one of the first places that people are going to go as a home base for the brand. So if things need to evolve as far as talking about a company's larger purpose, does this tend to be like a whole new site revamp that they have to think about? Or can it be something that really we're talking more about a change to, say, the About Us page or homepage or something like that, so it's not major surgery? What tends to happen there?
It depends. And what tends to happen is the clients want to change the visual before they do their thinking. So they want to go in a new direction and they think, oh, we need a new website, we need a new theme, we need a new, we need to look different than we were. And they haven't done the thinking or done enough of the thinking to really articulate what is different about their offering, what is different from the way they were, or the way they want to evolve to. And we find that, we've made mistakes going forward on that, where, we get on board and there are some major questions during the website development that haven't been answered by the client yet. They're not really sure, or they're like, oh, well, we do ABC now, not what we used to do. We have to show it this way. And, it's news to all of us on the team. So, I mean, it's up to us as consultants to make sure that the thinking really has been nailed down before we embark on the visual transformation for our clients. I can only say that by hard-won experience, by doing it the wrong way. But that's really important. I mean, no amount of words or visuals can steer the company in the new direction if the thinking about what that new direction isn't clear. So to answer your question, can an About Us page be changed with that? If it's the type of thing that it's small enough that it doesn't require the visual transformation, then a simple change to the About Us page could suffice. But we're only going to be able to make that decision once the clear thinking has been done, and then us as the marketing consultants can come in and say, okay, this is a huge major departure. Here's what we're going to have to look at as far as tagline, branding, messaging. Or you know what, it may feel like a huge departure, but as far as your customers are concerned, or your potential audience, or your new clients, not really. A little bit of refining here and there on the messaging, and we're good to go. But again, the hard thinking has to be done, and that's something we kind of have to hold our clients' feet to the fire in order to do. And that's that's tough business wise, and it's tough for us in our personal life too. So,
and I think helping our clients understand that their clients are part of this redefinition too, right? So that if you're finding something through the strategy that you're doing, that this is, if there's ever a time when, like, if a client is saying this over here, and their their clients are saying something different, that's a whole other need for realignment and refinding your why, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And it can get so we feel more like marketing therapists than marketing consultants, you know what I mean? And I think we're all kind of in this line of work. I mean, we're kind of drawn to to be of service. And I think sometimes, speaking for myself, I want to get on with being of service instead of saying, stop. The best thing I can do to serve you right now is to let you know things aren't really clear as much as you'd like them to be. So we need to, take another lap and really nail this down before we show you anything. And that can be tough. And that can, it's in the best interest of the project and the client, but it can be an awkward conversation to have.
Yeah, it definitely can. I mean, I think we've all, I'm assuming that we've all had that awkward conversation. I know I have, where we started down the road of a website, and this was probably the last time I ever did any kind of tactic before strategy, I'm embarrassed to say, but we started down the road of a website, and then simultaneously we were doing a strategy because we didn't think it could change that much. How much could that really change the website? And it was not a case of, well, they're completely wrong in what they're saying as a client, but rather the people who bought into that client's services said, no, they're really this. This is why I came to them. This is why I hired them. And so we had to change midstream and say, look, you need to buy into this because this is what your clients are saying. So your website can't necessarily look and feel like this. It should be more in line with what they're saying. And so they fought it. It wasn't easy. It was like, they weren't just like, oh, okay, well, if they're saying that. No, there was a lot of pushback. I assume we've kind of had those experiences. I hope I'm not the only one.
Not the only one. I think that's how we earn our stripes, right?
Yes. Paul, question for you, kind of like what I was asking Jen, but more in terms of, say, search engine optimization, keyword planning. When a client might make a change to their larger purpose, their mission, their meaning, but let's say that their overall, their services and products might be relatively the same. How much or how little might that create a change to their overall SEO strategy as far as, what people might be looking for? Have you ever had to change any of that?
It depends. That's the crux. It is your overall mission, your purpose, your larger meaning, how much is that going to diverge from your products or services now? Let's say you decide that you want to be an eco-friendly company. Well, are your products eco-friendly now, or are they not? If your products aren't eco-friendly, and you want to be an eco-friendly company, then it's going to affect everything. If you've always had eco-friendly products, but that's really never been a focal point of your mission or your brand, then it's not going to affect it quite as much. But yes, it will definitely have some effect on it. But you could probably write a book on that topic.
Yep. Ken, I wanted to turn a little bit of the focus on ourselves too, because I think we've all, even though we are brand experts, I think we've all at some point or another probably looked at our whys individually and said, how can I make my why clearer and stronger? You have an interesting direction that we were just talking about the other day. I hope I can talk about it.
Sure.
It's in regard to kind of a progressive chamber that you are creating as far as elevating progressive voices in the business community, which to me seems like about a why as much as anything. So just talk to us about this, because I'm kind of fascinated how you're integrating that.
Yeah, well, I think, if people look at my Facebook profile, it's not a secret that I ran for a state representative here in Missouri. I did not win, but I care about moving forward. I want to make the world continually a better place, and I think I'm struggling I absolutely love what I do. I love digital marketing. I love the ability to play with all these toys. I love the ability to deliver results for the clients. But at the same time, I feel like I'm missing something personally that is calling me to do things. And I'm not going to run for office again. I'm an introvert. It almost killed me in a certain way, because I put myself out there. I knocked on doors for 9 months,
Wow.
4 to 6 hours a day.
Mm.
And as an introvert, I was so exhausted when I was through that whole process. It was a great experience. I wouldn't change it. I learned a tremendous amount, not only about myself, but also about marketing, and obviously a lot about politics too. But I still feel the need to try to have impact in my community. And I love my local chamber. I've been a member. I've been on the board of that local chamber. Actually, I've been on the board of a couple of different local chambers. But there's still, even though they're nonpartisan, the politics creeps in.
Mm.
And I don't feel like they, in many cases, they represent things that are very, very important to me. Roads and bridges, hugely important. You can't have a functioning business community without infrastructure and roads and bridges. So things like that, they're behind. They're behind, a lot of things in terms of social issues that I care about. But at the same time, it's not enough for me. And so I'm looking at ways, how can I become a leader and contribute back to society, but also connect with a community of people that I need to be able to talk to and have some sanity with. And I don't want this to be an alienating kind of a thing, because I realize the word progressive is politically charged these days. Everything is becoming politically charged, but I want something in place, and I'm looking for a mechanism, and it's still very much in the planning process. I came up with the idea with a friend of mine because, we were both business owners. We're both plugged into the business community. The party that I affiliate with tends to not want to hang out with, people who are in business associations, which I think is a huge, huge, huge mistake.
Yeah.
And I fought to change that, and I didn't have any success. But it's like, okay, well, maybe sometimes you have to change things from outside and bring it in. And that's where this idea first started. So I don't really want to. I mean, sure, inherently it's going to have political implications. I mean, everything we do is political, whether we admit it or not. It is. Every action we take is a statement about what we believe or how we feel about treating other people. Um, so I don't know. It's just an interesting idea. We're in the planning stages, trying to work with some friends of mine who I think have similar frustrations, and see if we can do something cool and unique that I
Yeah.
don't know, just brings another opportunity to have conversations to the table.
Yeah, and I think we sometimes even see this in some agencies that are very much geared now more than ever for like nonprofit kind of work, where it might be my imagination, but I thought sometimes in years past supporting that was like, okay, we'll give a certain amount of money or we'll sponsor an event or something like that. But there's definitely the potential now, since this pandemic started. I think where a lot more of them are saying, no, we need to go deeper than that. We need to integrate it into the fabric of who we are in some way. It doesn't have to be everything of who we are, but people will know it, and they will know who we support and what we believe in. And I think that's a good thing.
Well, I think you look at what's happening, and actually what's really interesting to me is large corporations have actually made the chambers of commerce move their positions on several social policies because businesses get it. They understand what their customers want and need.
Mm.
And and so you've seen a shift over the last, especially 5, maybe even 10 years, but especially the last 5 years, where businesses are saying, no, this isn't okay. This is what we believe in. And their actions are speaking volumes. And now you're seeing, shift in behavior of some of these larger institutions, whether it's political, whether it's a business association. And I think that's interesting because again, you've got to look and, for a long time, and again, I'm going to say this, and I don't want to offend anybody, but I think people who have different political ideas than I have been much more effective in organizing themselves and driving their values with who they do business with, which is fine. I have no problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
I think I actually think it's really smart for a business to recognize, this is my ideal customer. Maybe, but do it by design. Don't just do it by accident. Do it by design and make it part of your why and your purpose. And I think it's, to me, it's just it's an interesting time. I'm getting older all the time, and I'm just thinking about where I'm at in my life and what I want to accomplish. And obviously, I mentioned earlier, Hero on a Mission. By Donald Miller, which is coming out in January. Thanks, Donald. but it's a great book. I struggle with very detailed implementation things. That's because of the way I'm wired. But this book still has had a big impact on me because it's like, you need to wake up every day and say, what am I doing and why am I doing it? Whether it's aligned with your business or aligned with your person and what you're doing, and hopefully you get really strong alignment there. And I think reading this book, I got an advanced copy because I'm in some of the programs like Business Made Simple. That it's had a big impact in the way I'm thinking about this.
That's awesome. Ian, Ken mentioned large corporations, and I think this question probably plays into them. But I think small businesses can struggle with it too, which is sort of the concept. Let's say that you're the CEO of a mid-sized corporation, and you've got a certain why and purpose of what you believe of why that corporation exists. But what we are seeing sometimes is that the CEO's why is becoming the only why that matters, and everybody else just has to get on board with that somehow. So the CEO's values become the company's values. But are there any fundamental flaws with this direction, or do people just have to kind of live with it? Or is there any kind of more, say, all-inclusive way to sort of come to a collective why that has more meaning for more people in the company? So everybody says, this is who we are. This is our why, not just this is his or her why.
Yeah, really interesting question, Dan. Before I answer kind of my own thoughts, I wanted to share just some anecdotal evidence. And this is from a book I recently read, and it was looking at the most successful businesses. And I believe it was looking over, it might have even been looking over a 50-year period. And it was pulling out what made these businesses successful and these other businesses less successful as far as return on overall investment. And one of the key characteristics, because there was lots of businesses that were in the lower return on investment that we would all say, wow, those businesses are huge, they're awesome. But when they looked at ROI, they actually determined they weren't as successful as some of the other businesses. And one of the key characteristics had to do with exactly what you're asking about. And that is it an ego-driven CEO, or is it more of a servant leader behind the reins? And one of the connections that they were able to make is that the ego-driven CEO was all about their why and all about their vision. And usually they would have a huge bump up of success. And then as soon as that CEO was gone, the business is lost because they were the driving force and it was all about them. They even found that some of those businesses were serving the CEO's brand, meaning as the CEOs started to get into their sunset phase, knowing, hey, I'm going to be out of here in a few years, they started to build their personal brand, and the business actually suffered for it because he wasn't focused on leading the business. So I thought that was really interesting, and I thought that talked very specifically to what we're talking about today, that we, especially business owners in medium to large businesses, man, you got to take that kind of information to heart and understand that, that servant style of leadership where it's collaborative, that you're customer focused, you're employee focused, and you're making it a collaborative process as to why you exist, how you're going to deliver excellence to your customers every day, all day, and then supporting that in everything you do. I think that's such a foundational thing that gets lost on ego-driven. It's all about me, and they would never say it's all about them. But we all have. Anybody who's worked in the corporate world has probably experienced that type of leadership, and absolutely either loved it or hated it, depending on how supportive you were of their personal vision. But I've been in corporate businesses where there was a big leadership change. We thought we were on a good track, and then all of a sudden things fell apart because that CEO left, and then we had to, suddenly regroup and refigure out what we were all about. And a business should never lose who they are because the leader leaves, right? Obviously, in smaller businesses where it's very, there's fewer players and fewer people to buy into who you are, it's a little bit harder, but it's also easier in some ways, right?
Yeah, and it's it kind of goes without saying, but I think it has to be said, is that people just don't necessarily, the way that I think I've seen it, and maybe you've seen it in places you've worked, is they come out and they speak to perhaps this why that's been developed, or however it's been developed. But it's the frequency and the reinforcement of it all the time, which, sometimes it's like the annual holiday party, and okay, this is who we're going to be next year. And it's, one word or 3 words or something like that. And that's who we're going to be. But if you're not actually demonstrating it and illustrating it every single month, I think that's kind of to what you're saying is, a person could leave at the top level, but everybody would still know what they're all about, especially if they use, I would think, your calendar.
Yeah, I think there's also this inherent challenge with understanding the why and the what sometimes. Like, I don't know what FedEx's why is. I'm sure it's somewhere on their website. I'm sure I've read about it, but I don't care, right? As a customer, I just want to make sure that they reliably send my packages as quickly as possible, right? So I think sometimes we can overemphasize the why as a business and lose sight of, actually, my customer doesn't care. As a dentist, I want my dentist to be really good at what they do and cause me no pain, right? Like, why they do it. I want the good fuzzy feelings too of why they're doing it. Maybe it's to support charity, whatever it is, but a business can't overemphasize their why at the expense of their what.
That's a great point. I think I forget about that. That's true. We kind of fall in love with our own why sometimes, don't we?
And I think the why is the internal driving force of you as employees and as a team and as leadership and as a company of what empowers you to serve your clients well. But I think it's an internal thing that you can express externally, but it really is something to rally around and feed the energy in your business. That's my viewpoint anyways.
No, I wholeheartedly agree. Speaking of internal, Jen, this is kind of a question where I hope I'm not going to get too personal here, but I'm curious. This is something I've had to think about a lot is when we get to, again, say end of the year or a critical point in time, maybe it's a fiscal year change or something. That's when people start to ask who are we, and who am I a lot more. Was there ever a time in your life, your career, where you just had to take a step back, not that people could see you taking a step back, but rather to say, am I still doing what I want to do? Does this still give me the enjoyment and pleasure? And what do I need to do to change that? How did you answer that question? And, what was the journey kind of like for you to get some more clarity and some more power that you were looking for?
Well, it's interesting. When I saw this question come up today, I was just like, oh, Dan, geez. And then I thought, do I go there? Do I not? Do I go there? So I'll go there. But
Sure.
I promise there'll be no tears. So, I mean, in my professional life and my personal life, there's been a lot of times like that. But perhaps I could share something that, like, I haven't figured it out, but it hasn't been as neat and clean as your question. But maybe this will be helpful to some other business owners. If I can share a little bit about what I've gone through. So, I mean, we're recording this in the time of COVID, wherever you are, it's either over or still happening or whatever. But it's been certainly very challenging for everybody's business and everybody's personal life and whatnot. And largely, my company has made it through. We still have clients, we still have sales, we still have revenue. We have to make adjustments. There's been sacrifice. There's been, some hard times and all that, but, knock on wood, we're still here. And what had happened is our year end is June 30th. And so I was looking at our financials for June 30th, just this past year. And I saw what we made and, we're in the black. So apparently that's supposed to be all good. But I was looking at the number and I was not very happy about it. And I was just feeling like, all of the work that I put in the whole year, I had to get my attitude right. I had to get our team right. I had to all the burden of running your company in this kind of situation and taking care of your people and your contractors and making adjustments for all the curveballs that have happened. And I just thought, like, why am I not very happy about this? And that was quite unsettling for me. And so, I talked to a couple of other business owners and the answer was really, you know what, you're in the black, you came through COVID, you should be happy. What's your problem? And I just thought, okay, that's not the right answer, because there was still this wonderment of okay, externally, if comparatively, you're doing okay in COVID, what's your problem? Really, like that, what's your problem? What are you unsatisfied about? What's the problem here? And so, and so I thought about it. I'm like, okay, do I need to organize my calendar better? Do I need to, another kind of business boot camp? Do I need to is there some kind of, business book I can read to get my attitude fixed? And no, really it has been, and thankfully there's been a good conversation out there about mental health and whatnot. So I have gone and got some, personal counseling. And I go to the counselor and I say, okay, this is all about work. I'm having this problem about work and I don't know where to start. So please help. So anyways, the long and the short of it has been very interesting and it was the right thing to do. And I guess my advice would be, and we're still going through it, still trying to figure it out. But the advice is, if you're feeling like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore, or why is my business not giving me the satisfaction it once did, or, externally everything should, people are like, oh, you made it through COVID. What's your problem? I would say, go get some counseling to really reflect and have someone help you figure out what's going on. Because unless, you got your personal software dialed in properly, no productivity book or, weekend course about how to run your contractors better is going to help you. So, so I would say, the one thing, if you're coming up against that kind of feeling, it's great, right? We've all gone through a lot. And, as a person, as a business owner, you do grow and you do change, and what, did it for you a few years ago isn't going to do it for you this year. And, instead of running out to buy the latest and greatest business book, maybe get some counseling, see what's going on actually inside that, you don't know is there, that might be putting hurdles in your way. Okay. So it's not all figured out, but that's what's going on here. And that's, hopefully that can help. And other folks.
Well, yeah, and thanks for sharing that. I really appreciate it. I think 25 years and I haven't figured it out. So you're not alone. Trust me. We're all a work in progress. And I would simply add to that, every word of that was wonderful. I think, coaches are also good, not either or. Talk to somebody about one aspect of your business if you like, and then when you find the right coach, I think it took me a few tries, but finding the right one for business, it's just really nice to talk to somebody who doesn't do what you do, but they're not going to be cheerleaders like your mom and dad. There are people who are going to say, okay, now what are you going to do about it? And that's really good too. And then the other thing I would say is maybe there is an association, a mastermind that can also be a secure, safe place where you can let your hair down. But I completely hear you on going through something where you're in the black and still not feeling like, all right, why am I not happy? I actually had that myself right before I joined the marketing community we all belong to. And I thought, gosh, I don't know what's going on with me. Something's wrong. And then when you join a community like that and you see other people who are going through the same things, it's wonderful. I mean, it really is one of the best things I think you can do.
But, the thing is, the world changes too. And sometimes, there's nothing that happened to you. It's just, things are going on. I mean, honestly, Jen, I'm glad you brought that up because I think there are so many people who are going through things that you've faced and that you talked about that haven't been able to articulate it and understand it to the point where they can take action. And it's the world has changed so much, and it's accelerated way more than it was ever going to change without the crazy things that have been happening over the last 24 months. So it's okay to realize that, and just because you're doing, even if you were doing everything and everything was as good as it's been. I mean, for us, we've had a really weird year. I mean, it's been the strangest year I've ever had. And honestly, I'm more discontented with my business than I ever have been, just because of the craziness of the world, And so, it's time to retool. I mean, I've got the name ChangeScape for a reason. This is going to be like ChangeScape 6.0 at this point, as we're reinventing ourselves and adapting to the ever-changing world.
Yeah. And that could be so energizing too. I mean, to actually be closer to alignment of where you are now. There's nothing wrong with looking back and saying, well, that was right for where I was back in the day. But, for everything that the world is going through, I'm going to evolve a little bit. And I feel more confident as a result of that. So that's awesome. Paul, I'm going to wrap with you. Ken's been telling me I've been doing a lot of these Shatner references lately. So my question relates to how a brand can boldly go beyond toward a brand that makes a difference in the hearts and minds of others. But measuring someone's sentiment may sound challenging, but let's give it a shot. What are some ways that a brand that evolves its why can measure its employees, its customers, its prospects, its stakeholders into feeling like they're buying into what we're all about? Is there a sentiment that we can measure more closely to see that people are aligning, they get our values, that goes beyond just likes, let's say likes and heart emojis and smiley face emojis? Is there anything that you tend to measure in that way?
Well, ironically enough, is the social media person that I'm not, that's actually the best way to measure that. The willingness, how willing are people to recommend you? In-app ratings, like you said, the emojis and things like that, that actually does tell you something. Direct feedback. Ask people. Ask your customers. You may not want to directly ask them, but ask them why they chose you, why they chose to do business with you, and you can get some interesting feedback. Look at the comments, the rating, your ratings, your reviews. The tone of the comments can tell you something. It's somewhat subjective, but it is there, and social media actually is one of the best places to find that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it sounds like many times with reviews, we sometimes forget that looking at, say, if you have as many as, let's say, 20 of them, what's the common thread? And guaranteed, there's going to be at least half of those that are going to be saying things that you never thought about yourself. And then suddenly you're like, well, maybe that is my actual why right in front of me. I'm sure we've all kind of seen that maybe with our clients, is that they thought they were one thing, and then they give reviews, and I'm going to say positive reviews, that,
negative reviews can tell you a lot too.
That's true. Yes, they can. We had one of those about 6 months ago where a client had more than one review that was in the negative for kind of their onboarding process. And it was just a consistent theme. It wasn't that they were a bad company. It was just people consistently saying, I got in and I didn't know what I was doing for the first 30 days or something. So you can use that to tweak and hopefully turn things around. Especially, I'm sure if you respond to them and say, we're actually trying to fix that.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the world has become a little overly politicized. I tend to be more pragmatic, kind of what Ian was saying, that now if a company's over the top in something, that's one thing, but if I want to know if you're good at what you do. If I need a new roof, I want to know that I can trust that company. So that plays into the whole social aspect, and I want to know that they're going to do a good job. And that's pretty much what I want to know. And there's other people that the company's values are much more important to them. And fair enough, that I don't really care either way, but I think you do have to monitor these things, because if you take too drastic a position either way, you can turn people off.
Yeah. And I love that point that you made and Ian made about, sometimes these are internal things that you're really looking at above all. It doesn't have to be something that the whole world buys into, but do your people internally buy into what this why is, whether it's been something that's been around for a long time or it's something that's radically changing? Internally, do they feel it? And then, like you said, the client may not really care as much about that as much as get my package there on time.
Yeah,
So,
and maybe they do, maybe they don't, but that goes back to your question of paying attention to these social signals, so to speak, because you may find that your customers really do care about these things more than you thought, or you may find out that they really don't give a damn. It could go either way.
Yep. That's perfect.
And just if I can add one thing to kind of that thread, the one thing I would I think is worth considering is, I talked about kind of the pragmatic aspect of it, but where the why does truly affect things is how your people deliver and treat your customers. So just as an example, we get lots of packages here. There's one company that's just like a middleman kind of delivery company for Amazon. It's not Amazon. It's not FedEx. Not one of the big players. They always throw the packages onto our front step, and then they take a picture because they delivered it properly, but they have no idea what's inside there and how breakable it is. Whereas I notice other couriers will place it like it's not like they're placing it like, China, but they're gentle with it. Yeah. And then they take the picture of it. So I just noticed stuff like that. And I've seen that in a lot of companies I've worked in as well as clients we support, is that it's the why can often influence the how they deliver their service with humanity and the passion of caring for people. And I think that's truly a wonderful thing.
Yep. And speaking of a wonderful thing, I think we just created some wonderful insights there for people who might need to be in a really good place of changing up why they do what they do. Don't look at this as a bad thing. This may be the best thing that you've ever done for your company to get back in touch with who you are and taking the next step forward. So for all of us here at Marketing Guides for Small Business, Dan Gershenson, and thanks again, and we'll see you next time.